aces and eights. They call it the dead man's hand. It's the most famous hand in poker, forever linked to the moment a legend was shot dead. For over a century, that's where the story has ended. But what if the real story, the one you haven't seen, reveals a secret about the end of the Old West itself?
It's a story that begins with a legend, but ends in a shallow grave. Welcome back to Old West Unseen, where today we investigate the truth behind Wild Bill Hickok's death. The world saw this man, an icon with a steady gaze. But by 1876, that image was a lie. His legendary eyesight was failing. For a man who lived by his eyes, it was a death sentence, delivered long before McCall ever entered the room.
And this is where he ended up, Deadwood, Dakota Territory. It wasn't just a town, it was an illegal camp built on land belonging to the Lakota Sioux. A chaotic swirl of mud, timber, and ambition, a place outside the law where a man's reputation was both a shield and a target.
Legends followed him everywhere, fueling an impossible mythology. Stories of fighting bears with knives and single-handedly destroying gangs. The man who arrived in Deadwood couldn't possibly live up to the legend he'd created.
On August 2nd, 1876, with his vision dimming and his prospects dwindling, Hickok did what he had to do. He went looking for a poker game. He ended up at Nuttall and Mann's Saloon, a typical frontier establishment. For an aging gunman, cards were a way to survive without a fight.
Here, he made his fatal mistake. Hickok's one ironclad rule was to never sit with his back to the door. But the only free seat faced away from the entrance. He asked another player to switch, but the man refused. Tired and perhaps overconfident, Hickok took the seat. It was a decision that would cost him his life. This is the man who walked in. Not a famous gunslinger, not a rival. His name was Jack McCall, a small-time buffalo hunter and a drunk who had lost badly to Hickok at cards the night before. Hickok had offered him money for breakfast, an act of pity that McCall took as a mortal insult. McCall walked quietly up behind the seated Hickok, drew a .45 caliber Colt, and shouted, "Damn you, take that," before firing a single bullet into the back of his head. James Butler Hickok, the legendary Wild Bill, died instantly, slumping sideways onto the sawdust floor. He never saw it coming. McCall was captured immediately, but what followed was a perfect example of frontier chaos. Because Deadwood was an illegal camp, it had no legal court. An impromptu miners' court was formed. McCall lied, claiming Hickok had killed his brother. Incredibly, the jury of miners and drunks acquitted him after just 2 hours. Advised to leave town, McCall made his own fatal mistake. He couldn't keep his mouth shut. He fled to Wyoming Territory and began boasting in saloons that he had killed the great Wild Bill. Word of his bragging soon reached federal authorities, who took a keen interest in the matter. U.S. Marshals arrested McCall, arguing the miners' court had no legal standing. He was taken to Yankton, given a proper trial, and sentenced to hang. In a final grotesque twist, his body was later moved and buried in an unmarked grave. This headstone is a modern fake, a final, strange piece of folklore for a truly pathetic killer.
So what about the dead man's hand? The truth is, no one knows for sure what cards Hickok held. The story of aces and eights only appeared decades later, a piece of campfire folklore that was more memorable than the pathetic truth. The legend erased the man. But this was real. This is Hickok's loyal friend, Colorado Charlie Utter, at the grave he paid for. There is no glory here, only the quiet grief of a friend for the man he called Pard.
The unseen story isn't about the cards in his hand. It's about the life that was stolen from him and the legends that were built on his grave. But what do you think? Was justice ever truly served for Wild Bill? Let us know in the comments below. If these hidden stories matter, a like and subscribe helps others find them.